Hey everyone, my name is Dale Thorne. I'm the co-founder of SDR Leaders of USA. Um, a little bit about SDR Leaders of USA. It is now the world's largest and most active sales development leadership community ever built. SDR Leaders of USA started a little bit more than 16 months ago, and organically we've now grown to 1,487 members that have joined it. And there's a free Slack group that we have that is extremely active, where a lot of leaders are asking questions, sharing their knowledge, sharing that they're hiring SDRs, but also if they're looking for roles, they're actually finding full-time leadership roles there. It's just for sales development leaders. Today's session is going to be a very, very special one. Um, we have right now Valerie Bowden. Excuse me, founder and CEO of CRDLE. Valerie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, guys, I'm so excited to be here today. My name is Valerie. I got into the sales SDR world in a very unconventional way. I had years ago, I'd backpacked across Africa by myself with a tent for 7 months, went through 13 African countries, had an amazing time, ended up living in Ethiopia for 8 years. And it was while I was there that I got hired by an American outsourcing company as an SDR manager. And that's how I got into sales was when I was there. And then about 4 years ago, I came back to the US. I was 8 months pregnant with my second child, and I thought this would be a really good time to quit my job and be financially unstable and start my own company. And luckily, it paid off. And now we have about 200 team members, and most of them are SDRs. So that's what we're doing today.
Love it. Thank you, Valerie. So, as you all are aware, the topic today is building the modern SDR org, high performance, zero churn, global scale. There's going to be a lot of you. So if you, at the same time, similar to our SDR Leaders of USA events, meetups, mixers, we definitely want it to be a lot more conversational. So if you do have any questions, or any questions, definitely add in the Q&A section. Historically, we use the chat, but for this instance, this is the first time we're using the Zoom webinar platform, you can say, or product. Shout out to Ollie Whitfield, who is going to be managing that just a little bit, just in case. But again, if you have any questions or comments, leave in the Q&A. So Valerie, I'll pass it on to you.
Cool, guys. Okay, so let's jump in. So as I was saying, let me just share my screen here. Kind of the beauty of what I've been doing is that because we provide SDRs for different sales teams, I've had like a front row seat to seeing what works really well and what doesn't. And there are some super clear patterns between what a high performing sales team and leader is doing compared to those who don't. So over the next 25 minutes, I'm just going to be sharing the exact practical takeaways that you can start doing today to kind of increase your skills as a leader and what your team can start doing. So let me just move on, guys. I don't know why this is not clicking. We're just going to do this. Okay. So if you were like, wow, like what does high performing actually look like? One of our clients messaged me like a week ago and was like, hey, since January of this year, like our team of 10 SDRs have booked 3,916 meetings, which is like almost 1,000 meetings per month. And they've generated over 806,000. And if you look over here on the right, like, okay, that's kind of good. But like, what was the cost of that? Like the SDR program cost was around $64,000 for what they paid for 4 months. But if you were to, let's say, hire in the US, let's say, like take like a New York based team, you're going to be spending over $200,000. So later on in this kind of slideshow, I'm going to also just be sharing what are the three things that this SDR manager does super, super well. Because again, those are things that you can just easily implement yourself. So, okay, so let's look at the very beginning. So, obviously, the best thing to do to have a great team is to be hiring wonderful people, right? So, this is what I've seen over probably 1,000 different SDRs getting interviewed. Is one, you should be looking for people who are hyper coachable. And the best way to do this is to I think do a role play in the interview and then give them feedback and see how fast can they quickly tweak, how fast can they slow down their pace, stop saying what they just said, and do that over and over. And that's one of the best ways to know if someone's going to be coachable. Two is look for active listening. And I know we all know that, but for me, I find the best way to pinpoint if they're good at active listening is at the end when I say, and do you have any questions for me? And some of them will ask really, really good questions. And then after I answered, they'll just be like, okay, right? Like they totally forgot to listen to what I was saying. So that's where I start to look for active listening. Three is you want to find people who are really quick on their feet because, as you know, a cold call can go, really off script, and you want people to be able to roll with the punches. So I love doing some kind of element of surprise in an interview. So for me, that's like an unprepped role play. Other people will do like a game. If you guys know James Buckley at Sell Better, he's been like a really cool supporter of ours. And he will do like play 20 questions. He'll ask them a riddle, but like anything to make them think like, whoa, like I was not expecting that today. Four, and I know people are going to disagree with me on this, but I am at the point where I only hire people who have cold called before. And I know that we have SDR managers who are like, no, I don't want people to have bad habits. Like I want to take people right after college. For me, going back to my early days as an SDR manager, I have seen so many people get hired. They had the right tonality, the right personality, the right motivation. Day two, they're crying because they just cannot handle the amount of rejection they're getting. It's hurting their mental health. So, like for me, I only hire people who have cold called before, and for me, it's made them a lot more sticky. And we've gotten better results once we started doing that. Fifth thing to look for, I think, is you have to know the kind of personality that's going to go really well with what you're hiring for. So for us, we have kind of decided that there's like four different sales personalities. There's like the sales bro, which we're all really familiar with. There's like the super friendly, high energy kind of SDR. There's someone who's really compassionate, right? A little bit softer, but like great for med tech sales. And there's someone who's also maybe a little bit more on the serious or like reserve side. They might be better for financial services or maybe compliance. And so, just as an example, a few weeks ago, we had a client who hired someone who he loved. She reminded him so much of like his daughter. And then a few weeks in, he's like, whoa, like we need someone way more aggressive. Like I need like a sales bro energy. So it's really important when you're going into that interview to know like which personality is going to really resonate with the person that they're calling. And then the last thing is like I love giving a follow-up task to them. So whether that's like a follow-up email or a task, I think it shows a lot about their professionalism, their character, how bad they want the job. So I would always kind of do like a follow-up after that. And I think another mistake I see a lot of SDR managers doing is like when they're hiring, they're looking for the exact perfect person. And those people actually don't last long in the job because they already know how to do the job. So I don't know if you guys have heard Richard Branson's like 80-20 rule, but he loves to be doing 80% within his comfort zone and 20% outside of it. And so that's what I look for. Like when I'm hiring someone, 80% of the way they already know how to do the job. They've already cold called, let's say, tech companies, hit the C-suite up. They know how to do B2B sales, but maybe the industry is new. Maybe this time they're doing like LinkedIn outreach as well. Like there's like 20% where they don't know what they're doing. And for me, again, that means that they're going to be sticky and they're going to like last with us. So hopefully that's making sense. There's also a lot of things that people say like this really matters, and I'm realizing like it doesn't matter. So sometimes we'll have an SDR manager say like I really want someone who has like Salesforce experience, and we're very quick to say like it doesn't matter. Like they can learn whatever tech stack. Like that doesn't matter. I used to like die on the hill that was like it doesn't matter what industry, like they can learn it really quickly. I have seen that like there is an exception to that. If you're in a very, let's say, specialized industry, or if you're white labeling your SDRs for a client who might not want that ramp up time, I would say that industry probably does matter more. And in that case, I would do some screening, maybe do like some training videos. If they pass the training, you can pay them and then go on to the hiring. Um, Other thing I would say is like never judge someone on their role playing on a prior script. So sometimes we have SDR managers who they're trying to be nice to the SDR and they'll say like, hey, like, why don't you just role play the last script you did at your last company? And then it turns out horribly, right? And it's because you don't know how bad that last script was or how bad that past coaching was. So, as an example, we once had an SDR manager who made our SDR say at its most elemental level. And I was like, wow, like I'm a native English speaker and I never have said at its most elemental level, right? And if you were to interview those SDRs, you would think that they were robots or didn't sound natural. And it really was down to the script. So you kind of have to be careful when you're having people role play on their last script. And then last thing I would say is like open your mind up to location. Like I always say, like talent is everywhere, opportunity is not. So whether that's opening yourself to SDRs who are in your zip code or in your country, like you'll just get a better talent pool if you can kind of like widen where you're looking.
So
Guys, is this, yeah, Dale, what's
Val,
your question?
we have a couple questions already.
Love
So,
it. Hit me.
so from Sean, going back around cost, does the
Mhm.
cost include the tech the SDRs use? Sorry if I missed that.
Good question. No, it does not include the cost on either side. So I think it broke down to like ours is around 1,600 per month per person. And like I estimated the US one at about 5,600 per month per person. So if that gives you any indication, you can like kind of estimate differently based on how much you know your SDRs cost.
Got it.
Yeah, good question.
And then Benjamin asked, with tech experience part, what's the main things you look in the cold calling experience, years, company, etc.?
I look for 6 months of experience. Because you don't want someone who's had like four different jobs in 3 months. Like that's a red flag. But yeah, if they've done 6 months and they just realize like, wow, I need a better company, better like work culture, better perks, then that's when I want to hire them. And usually I'm looking at people who, when I hire people, they're usually tripling or quadrupling their salary. But that might just be due to the industry I'm in. That might not be realistic for US based SDRs.
I gotcha. Yeah, my personal preference is hiring somebody that has between 7 and 9 months prior experience, just to
Yeah.
allow them to ramp up quicker. Obviously, they know the tech set, sales stack. They also
Yeah.
have an understanding of the motions, qualification, knowing how to collaborate with current AEs or whatever they
Mhm.
collaborate with. So that totally makes sense.
That's so good to hear. I know a lot of people who are like, I really want someone green who does not have bad habits, but you're right. Like everything you just listed, like that would take you so long to have to teach on that, like you want to skip that part completely just by making sure they have some experience.
Time is very, very valuable, especially if you have monthly or quarterly targets.
Yeah.
An
Yeah.
another question from Michael. How much weight do you put into the candidate's follow-up email or lack thereof? In my case, it's not something I explicitly ask for. Call me old-fashioned, but I do expect one, and many times I don't always receive one.
I I put a lot of weight into it. If it took them like 6 days to follow up with me, like to me, they didn't want the job, right? Like I want like a nice, sweet message a day or two after. I think the one caveat is if it's a task, like some SDR managers will say like, okay, now that you know about my company, write me an email as if it's like a cold email and you're pitching me on my company. And then they'll get the message and they're like, this is so bad. But again, it goes back to like what they were taught to do. So that's like the caveat where I'm like, well, if they followed like a really bad script, that's probably just what they were taught to do before. But yeah, I definitely want some kind of timely follow up without without like grammar mistakes or anything stupid like that.
I gotcha. We have
Yeah,
even more questions now.
I
In
love it.
in general, for hiring, what are your biggest red flags?
For me, professionalism, like someone who's like 5 minutes late, doesn't show up on time, um, even sometimes like what they're wearing. Like if you show up in a hoodie, I feel like you don't want it. We've had clients who like they were in between who to hire. They picked the person who was wearing a suit because they're like that person really wants the job. Yeah, so I think professionalism. Everything else like you can teach and you can coach, but if someone's gonna ghost you, like that's a huge red flag.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
From Jackie, what about location change for the candidate? Do you ever hesitate on this?
Like making them change location.
Or if they is that I
Is that what that means?
possibly and or if they're going to be changing location in order to work for the employer.
I I mean, I think that's totally fine because they wouldn't apply for you if they didn't want to live there. And chances are they're probably wanting to move there and they want a good excuse. And if they move there for the job, I think they're going to be even more adamant about making sure that job works out because if not, like that's a huge wasted like amount of effort on their end. So yeah, I think that's a green flag.
Fair enough. And one from Scott. I do professional hires as well, but how do you coordinate team chemistry, both with other BDRs or SDRs and the sales reps they are supporting?
Okay, that's a great question. Well, I a couple things. Let me actually go to this slide because I think this slide will answer that.
Okay.
So when if you do, there's two different ways you can do an interview. I think most people do one-on-ones, which I'm going to try and discourage you on. But the first one, I think, again, bring a few people to the interview, so it's not just you. The first meeting really is like a vibe check, right? Like you're looking for the tonality, the personality. You're doing role playing. You're trying to see if they fit. The second one I would say is more of like a virtual coffee where you really are trying to see if you guys get along. And the SDR managers I know who make this less like an interview and more like a daily huddle. The more they're like, okay, so I just gave you 20 minutes of feedback. Like, do you like that? Because if you work for me, like that's what every huddle is going to look like. Those are the ones where you can see if they're going to fit your like team culture better. Um, but I don't know if I would love to see it in the chat. Like, how many of you guys have done a group interview for SDRs? Because for me, this is like the only thing I would ever do now is a group interview. And so what I would do is I'd bring in like 6 to 8 candidates and I would go around and I'd have them do like their name, their background, like a fun fact. And then I would usually try and ask them like a polarizing follow-up question. So if they say, and I like to play basketball on the weekends, I would say, who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James? Now, I already know the answer to that. I know if you're over 30, you're going to say Michael Jordan. I know if you're under 30, you're going to say LeBron James. I've seen this play out like in every interview, but you get to see like their sales skill, like how well can they sell you that they think LeBron's better. You get to see their personality through it. And then I'll go ahead and I will do like questions like popcorn style. So I would not make you do like Dale, Valerie, Ashley, Amy answer. Like I would like just be like whoever wants to go first goes first, right? And then you can see who's answering first, who's not. Then my favorite group interview question, which I hope you guys try after this, is I would say like, Sarah, like why should you hire David? Or like why should I hire David? And then maybe like David, why should I hire Dale? Dale, why should I hire Valerie? And that question again element of surprise because they're not expecting to answer that. Two, you test their active listening because you know who actually listened and then who cannot remember at all what Dale's experience was or Valerie's experience. And yeah, you see their sales skills in it. And then lastly, like I would always, yeah, open it up for questions. But the reason why I kind of answered with this slide is like when you do a group interview, you see who's a team player, who's the most competitive, who already is kind of like syncing well together, and who's not. So yeah, if you're worried about culture, involve more people in the interview and then try doing a group interview as well.
We have even more questions now, Valerie.
Yay, love this.
From Kristen, if hiring an SDR with previous experience, how do you vet out SDRs who underperform at their company and jump around from SDR role to SDR role?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, you can always ask them what their KPIs are, but they could always lie. Honestly, I would put it back more on the SDR manager and your sales processes. Like if your system is set up really well and you have the right incentives in place, I think you can take almost any SDR and get good results. And so, like as an example, we've had SDRs maybe like be let go or weren't hitting KPIs with one client, but like I personally still love them and I still thought they were great. We'll place one with another client and they become like that client's like rock star, right? But it was because it was like a better environment to incentivize them. So yeah, I would definitely like, you can test it out, interview them a couple times, but I think hopefully you have a good enough system that they're very well incentivized.
For me personally, one of the biggest reasons, one of the biggest things that I see when I'm interviewing SDR candidates or BDR candidates and why they're looking is a lack of promotional track. So then,
Mm,
and typically I see it more, experience it more when the SDRs are either at a current employer that is primarily within the enterprise space, where they were essentially overpromised and underdelivered around their expectations on the promotional track. Granted,
mhm,
they took in consideration the external AEs that they did hire that had around 10 to 15 years of prior selling experience in the space that they worked in. So the lack of clarity and the lack of enablement and the lack of upward mobility is primarily that I've ran into when it came to like evaluating an SDR candidate of whether or not they were wanting to join my team,
mhm,
but like really digging into like is that absolutely true? Is the
mhm,
product is it an enterprise solution? Is the is it external candidates that are hiring? Is it really at that level to validate whether or not or check whether or not they're jumping ship for the right reasons and it's not necessarily underperformance. With,
mm.
with another question from Colton, what motivations do you look for? Obviously, money is a big one for sales roles, but what else?
I mean, personally, our all of our team members work remote, so that's a huge perk that people look for. I think a lot of people also really want to work for a place where they can learn and grow. So the more coaching and training you can do, I think is a huge plus. I think people also really want like a good work culture. Like we have 74 clients, and like we know who the nice ones are and who those who aren't, right? And like you can just see the churn rate. It's totally different. So like you can't underestimate being kind and like making a good atmosphere. I think like that cannot be underestimated.
Fair enough. A question from Leonard. What are your thoughts on agencies training BDRs for experience?
Like training the BDRs before they start with you.
I believe so.
Okay. I mean, I I think that's great. Like again, the more training, the better. I mean, personally, we do some SDR training and then some of it's led by the client, like that's industry specific, but again, like the more training, the better. Like I don't think you can ever have too much training, and I think most SDRs fail because they did not get enough training.
Fair enough. Looks like we're going to pop this one, pop this cherry. So this is from Alan. Regarding hiring, with the rapid adoption of AI, do you see it as a negative or positive when you can totally tell someone used AI to prep, come up with the answers, talk, track, etc.?
Oh, I mean, yeah, AI. I was going to see if we can go the whole time without talking about AI, just give people a break, but this is great. I mean, obviously AI is super, super helpful, right? Like it should help you. But if you can tell someone's using AI, they're not using it correctly, right? Like it should fuel you, but you shouldn't be able to tell someone's using AI that much. So I think they need a lesson on how to use it properly. I
So,
don't know. Dale, what would
uh,
you say?
codependency.
Okay.
Yeah, tools are used by people, people aren't used by tools.
Yeah.
Another question from Richard. What's the right number of interviews per candidate? Two, four, six plus?
Oh God. 6 plus? Do people do that? That'd be crazy. I mean, I would say two or three. I think anything more than three is bad. We have one client who does 3 rounds. So he does like one is like a 5 minute. Let me just see if you like pass the tonality, accent, test like that. Second one is the role play, getting into the experience. Third one's more like the virtual coffee. And I would say he has like a great team. So I would say two or three.
Okay. So I'm going to mash these two questions kind of together. First round is 30 minutes with a manager for vibe check. Then if they pass, we do an hour with presentation and cold call role plays with an AI ahead of it. But to correlate, pulling that back a little bit, what does legal say about group interviews?
Oh, I mean, I think you'd have to double check. I mean, we are a US company, but all of our team members are offshore, so our sometimes things are a little bit different. Um, Maybe they have to sign off on it, but talk to legal if that's a concern. We have US companies who do this, so I don't know. But if you can do it, do it. Like it's for me, it's the best way to find the best SDR. Like it's so much better than one-on-ones.
Going back to group interviews, how much of the idea of group interviews is around saving time through the interview process?
I mean, it does save time because you don't have to say like your title and this is what our company does and this is what we're looking for like 8 times in a row. But I don't think it's about saving time. I think it's about seeing, it's like an easier way to compare people when they're all together. And again, like you'll see who's the most competitive, who's a good team player, who is so shy that they get run over on every single answer, like who folds the fastest. Like it's a really good way to actually see how they do in the sales environment.
Gotcha. Okay. Try to run through these two. Chris asks, we have a very technical product and pitch to a very technical persona. How can you better screen for candidates that are curious and are good at both learning and conveying complex topics?
Yeah, so you would be one where the industry does matter because it sounds like a lot of people would not get the technical aspect of what you're doing. So the clients we have in those kind of industries, they've given us like we'll screen candidates for them and then we put them through again like 30 hours of training where it's a mixture of like listening to videos, passing, testing, having to do something. And then if they pass that, the client will actually pay for those hours. And then if they fail out of it, those hours are unpaid. So yeah, I think you should definitely do some kind of training and test before they go through the hiring process the rest of the way.
Gotcha. Another one from Anthony. How do you compare candidates coming from outside of sales, but with skills that are sales adjacent? As
Oh,
an example, teachers, entertainment industry, etc.
the number one best closer I have did not come from the sales world at all. He knew the industry. Honestly, he has the best personality, and I knew that like our clients would like him a lot. And he's done amazing. And our approach is we're very non-spammy. And because he doesn't come from that sales background, he's not spammy either. So yeah, I think if they come from one of those backgrounds, that's a plus in my world.
Cool. We have two more and then we'll keep things going.
Cool.
If you are always looking for experience, are you also paying at a non-entry level pay? We are seeing more and more description says entry level but want experience. So the pay doesn't fit the ask. I have found recent grads are hungrier, eager to learn and pick up on tools and onboarding very quickly. So like going back to the question, are you also paying at a non-entry level pay?
We pay entry level. Even people who have experience will be like, prove it. Like work for 3 months and then we'll chat about like a higher rate and we'll kind of predetermine what that is. I think a lot of the people who have big ass sometimes aren't really worth the pay rate. And it sounds like you kind of already know the answer. Like those new college grads are picking up on the onboarding, the tech stack, they're hungrier. So I would lean in to that.
Okay. And then last question, then we'll move on. How do you keep your team motivated and dedicated on the work?
Great question. I think I have some slides in there. I think some like later on that kind of covers this. I think a lot of it is like the incentives, right? Like paying money. Some of it is like just being a good person, like sending them coffee or dinner if they hit their KPIs. Some of it's giving them opportunities to grow, like keep doing more and more training, more and more coaching. Um, I think just again, like the amount of companies I've seen that are just so toxic to work at, like that makes it really hard. But if you have a good company and you're giving them incentives and it's really clear what they're supposed to do, I think you're gonna get like some really great SDRs. I don't know, Dale, what would you add to that?
So again, the question, how do you keep your team motivated and dedicated on the work? Um, and from my experience, it's all about the professional development and like the eventually the role that they want to go into. Like also consider like every team will potentially have top performers. Those performers are making money. And so I know like most leaders run a lot of like spiffs and could run too many spiffs. And generally those spiffs are correlated around like a certain type of payout, say like $50, $100, $200, whatever it is. Like the incentive for those top performers to win that spiff, and even though be some type of nominal amount, like it's not as intriguing for them because they already are going to be making that money. So like what would be like the more of incentive for the top performers in my eyes? It could actually be lunch with the VP or the CRO or more type of admiration given across the entire BD or within the sales org. It really depends on the individual, their performance, their tenure, and their long-term like professional goals that they have. So it's kind of a mixed bag from my eyes.
Mm. That's so good. That's amazing. Cool. You guys are best questions. I'm loving this. Well, let me keep going. Let's talk about how do you integrate SDRs better. I think this is actually where most teams go wrong. On a completely side note, this is Aman, who's on my team. He has brought in, I think, over $1 million in 1 year for his client. He closes, I think, like 10 deals a month that are each around 10,000 by cold email only. He literally emails people. He might touch base on a cold call a little bit, just like nurture, but it's almost all by just really good cold emails, not using AI to sound like AI, but just really great emails. So just food for thought for you. Okay, so when it comes to onboarding, I don't know if anybody was at Funnel. Would love to know if you were, but Morgan from Amp Social, who's one of the keynote speakers, right? Incredible. I pulled him aside and asked him like, how long should he train an SDR before they start calling and dialing? And he said 2 weeks. 2 weeks of content only, which blew my mind because even our best clients don't do that. Our best clients do about 1 week of content before they start dialing old leads. But Morgan said 2 weeks, and I think he's the GOAT. So that's what I now tell all of our clients. Like, that is the minimum. And I don't think you can train enough. Like, it's just like it makes such a big difference. Second thing I'd recommend is making sure your new reps are getting introduced to different team members. I think sometimes SDRs, especially, kind of get in their own little silo and they don't really know what's happening with the rest of the organization, which I think hurts their performance. So one way I like to do this is like a scavenger hunt. So you can say like, okay, I want you to meet the VP of sales, the CRO, the closer, person from finance, who's paying your salary, and learn about them, what they're doing in the company, and then also tell me which one's the best at pickleball. Tell me which one has a dog named Bob Marley. Tell me which one is pregnant with twins. And like it kind of makes it a little bit more fun if you can make it into a gamification. Um, and one other thing I would say here is that I think a lot of people are really afraid for their SDRs to sit in on their closers' calls because they don't want the SDR to know too much and then start selling too much over the phone. I have found the opposite. I think the show up rate is much higher if the SDR knows kind of where that closer call is going, because they get them hyped. Like you definitely don't want to miss meeting Dale tomorrow because he is gonna like do this and this on that call, and like you don't want to miss it. So when they know the whole process, I think they can hype it up more, which is great. Okay, so this third part, meetings, again, like if I could say this is like where most clients go wrong, is like I don't think you're meeting your reps as much as you should. So our number one best client, who is actually a member of this community, and they're hiring like 20 SDRs a month from us. What they do is they do a morning and a midday huddle. And I have found this to be so impactful. So in the morning, it's before you dial and it's like, hey, is everyone good? Everyone's ready. What's the intention? Midday, everyone's hopping on a call again. Like, how many appointments did you set? What was the biggest objection? Like, what are you looking forward to this afternoon? But that midday touch point, I think, makes such a huge difference. So that's what I would say is like number one best style. Number two that we've seen for smaller clients who don't have as much bandwidth, they will have an SDR manager actually listen to calls live in front of everyone with the whole team. And this is great because the SDRs can hear how like tonality is different between each other, how people handle objections differently, but still get the same results. And I think it also keeps you on your toes because if you know your worst call is going to be played in front of the 10 other colleagues that you have, like you don't want to mess up, right? Like you're constantly trying to be better. So we've seen that work. And then the third style is we had a client named Josh who, it was a new sales organization. So he had his three SDRs. He spent 1 hour a day training them for 6 weeks. And he was like the founder. So that was like a huge time investment on his end. But after 6 weeks, they had closed $100,000 in revenue for him. So again, like I just want to say, like over and over, the more you meet with them, the more touch points you have, the better results you're going to get. And then if you're like, whoa, Valerie, like I do not have that much time, I think one thing you can do is pair a senior SDR with a junior SDR. So if you have questions during the day and they're not being answered during that like morning huddle or midday huddle, then like I'm pairing you to a senior SDR and you can ask them the questions on Slack instead of me because maybe I don't have the time. And a senior SDR might be the person who was hired 3 months before you, right? So just somebody who has a little bit more experience in the culture than you do. And the last thing, again, people are going to disagree with me, I think, on this. I'd love to hear it in the comments. I think people should micromanage. Like, I am pro micromanaging. I think there's a lot of clients who will hire an SDR and say, like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I know you're an expert. I have found that the more I, let's say, lead with active coaching for the first 6 months, you get much better results. So, as an example, I have two new team members on my team and I checked their calendar on Friday and I was like, whoa, guys, like you're not going to hit your KPIs. Like there is not enough activity scheduled on their calendar. Like the math is not going to math, right? So I want you to spend the rest of the day filling up your calendar for next week. On Monday, I'm going to check it. And then on Monday, I checked it and it was full, right? So I know they're going to hit their KPIs. So I would always say like it's better to like overly manage the first 6 months and then the next 6 months you can kind of, they can have more input. You can like lessen up a little bit, but I think it's always better to like over manage in the beginning. I don't know. That's my personal opinion. And then I think this kind of goes, yeah,
Valerie, I have two questions.
do it.
So from Frank, what's your take on KPIs, dials, emails, LinkedIn steps? Do you feel it's moving from a volume game to a quality game?
No, I don't think so. I'll share that later, but like the client I mentioned who's doing 1,000 appointments per month, her team is calling 300 people a day each. So I
Three,
know that
300 people or 300 dials?
300 dials per day per
Okay,
person. Yeah. I I know quality is important, and I think it might differ on the industry, but I think at the end of the day, cold calling is still very much a volume game. So yeah, I wouldn't be afraid to hit that volume.
cool. And this isn't a question, but it's more of a comment from Colton. Pairing them with an onboarding buddy, aka senior SDR, is a game changer. Agreed,
Yay.
though. Need to micromanage at first. More structure, the better. Yeah, your management style fluctuates or changes based on the tenure and a
Hmm.
level of experience of the SDR or BDR, right?
Yep, yep. I love that comment. Yeah, it's you guys like everybody's agreeing to this. If you're not doing it, like start doing it. I like my sister's a teacher, so she kind of says the same thing. Like the first half of the year, she's so strict on her students. The other half, like she can like loosen up. But if she starts loose, like she will never gain, I think, control of the classroom again. Like these are middle schoolers. But I think that it still applies. Like you want to be overly strict because that actually is what's going to help them. You already know what makes someone successful. So yeah, why not help them and do that?
If you don't mind me adding, Valerie, one of the things that I do for my team is I have them going on a meet and greet tour. So I have
Love
them meet
that.
all the BDRs that are out of the office or within the specific team that they're on. And then I also have them going on a listening tour, a meet and greet tour, and meeting with all my peers, my leadership peers. Then I
Hmm.
also have them meet with the person that's in charge of RevOps. And then I also have them meet successful AEs within the team that they're going to be supporting, not necessarily the ones that they're going to be aligned to. Then I also have them meet with their AEs managers. And then I have them meet essentially director level, like colleagues here at my
Hmm.
employer, Fivetran, just so they get comfortable with talking with director level and above types of personas. And
So
then
smart.
I give them questions and topics and questions to ask. So in turn, they get a holistical understanding of how things work, but also what good potentially looks like. So they have a better idea of what decisions they can make, but also what their process can actually look like too, and know each individual what their potential strengths are in order for me to help delegate the onboarding essentially to those my colleagues because I know that they have certain strengths rather than somebody else has an area of potential improvement. Just a small little comment there.
I think that's so good. Like the more people they meet of the team, you're right. Like everything you said makes sense. Plus, they're going to feel more a part of your company, and the more you can do that and integrate them faster, like they're already going to feel like they're part of your team, and that's what you want. You want them to feel like they're at home already.
Plus, the added benefit too is that if they start the initial meet and greet tour early on, so then they build up the initial relationship. So
Mhm.
down the road, they already have those existing relationships where they know it has an open door policy. And so they can help
Mhm.
around the professional development, potentially moving on to those teams too. So
Love that.
early, often, and fast.
That's
Scott,
so good.
actually, Kathleen has a comment. Always set up shadowing for week two onboarding. And then Scott
Mhm.
says meet and greet is huge. I also assigned culture buddy. Ooh, that one's different. From
That's cool.
outside the sales org, but within the company, so they can learn about how other parts of the company operate and what they care about. Ooh, I like that, Scott. I like that a
That's
lot.
good. I love like the name of that culture buddy. Like that's so great. Yeah, that's amazing.
Perfect.
That's are good. Love it. Well, okay. I would love to talk about incentives then and also see like what you guys think in the chat, like what you guys have seen works really well. These are probably the three or four things I would add to it. Is one, clear metrics. The amount of times we've had an SDR say like, I didn't get my $200 bonus. And then when we talk to the SDR manager, they're like, he didn't earn it. And we're like, oh no, like there should never be like confusion over if you earned those or not. Like everybody should be on the same page. Second thing, and maybe this is where people might have different opinions. I would say most of our SDR managers are paying per qualified booking that shows up. Some people are only paying if they go over their KPI. So if the KPI is 10 per week, maybe it's you get the bonus if you want 12 over. So that's one way to do it. I think that people who only pay if that deal closes, It's so much outside the SDR's hands. It doesn't help them, I think, as much. And the last thing, like we learned recently, we messed up on this, is to make sure that you're incentivizing the right thing. So, as an example, we have two new account managers, and we were incentivizing them on the account health. So we would look at how many accounts are in the green, how many are in the yellow, how many are in the red. What we realized was that was a bad idea. We changed it to retention for the end of the quarter, and we saw a huge difference because they would then come to us and say, like, hey, this account's actually in the yellow. I don't know how to get them up to the green. And then we can coach them and support them because now they were incentivized to tell us the truth versus like incentivizing to say all their accounts in the green and really some of them are probably not. So yeah, we realized like we have to incentivize for them to be honest and transparent, if that makes sense. And then other bonus that we've seen a lot of our SDR managers do is know your SDR's address and then just like as soon as they like maybe got a win for the day, they went over their KPIs, they had their KPIs for the first time, whatever it is, like instantly you're sending them coffee, a donut, free lunch, like whatever, like you're just on there like ordering for them. You can do this if they're in the office, you can do it if they work remote, you can do this if they work offshore, like it doesn't matter. I think it's been really cool to see our team members really light up when they get something like this. Organizing dinners together as a team, you're probably already doing it, but I've seen that make a big difference. And then also like just knowing what your team is working for. So I know like two of my team members really are saving up for like an EV. Like that's all they want is like an electric car. Like that's what they want, right? I know one guy is trying to pay off his like student loans, right? Somebody else is trying to hit her saving goal. But I would say like one takeaway from this, like if you don't know what your team is saving up for, I would like ask them what their personal goals are. And like I, for one, am like, okay, this is how you're gonna get your EV. You're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, we're gonna hit this goal, and like you're gonna buy that car and I'm gonna celebrate with you. So I think that's like one good practical takeaway from this.
Awesome.
Cool guys. Well, let's go into solving the churn crisis. So according to the internet, um, the average SDR is lasting about 16 months. I'm curious if you guys think that is true or not, and what you guys have seen playing out with your own team. And that includes 3 months of ramp up time. So if you see, this is Kadist on our team. She's based in Ethiopia. She has been with her client as an SDR for almost 4 years, like almost the entire length of our company time. Same position, right? So how are we doing that? Let me tell you. Um, okay, first of all, don't hate me, guys, when I say this. I'm not trying to be promotional or spammy, but it is like to me a statistical fact that an offshore team member is going to last longer as an SDR than a US based one. So, and that's if you set it up right. So let me tell you why. If you're an SDR in the US, it's most likely considered like an entry level role. Whereas if you're an SDR in an offshore location, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, whatever, you're probably working your career to get to be with a US company. So the typical career path for our team members is that they do college, they work at a local company, then they work at a bad outsourcing company, and then they finally come to us and they get placed directly with a really cool US client. So that's what they've been working for. So they're like happier to stay there. Typically, I would say like an SDR also makes an earlier career salary, but they really want to become a closer or an AE or something because they'll make more money. Where again, like if you're hiring an offshore team member, they should be making bank when they're with you. Like again, like compared to like a local company working for a US company, they're going to be making a lot more money. So they're already quite happier. And I would say most SDRs in America find it as like a means to an end. I don't know how many SDRs in America are like, this is what I see myself doing for like the next 30 years of my life is being an SDR, right? But I have seen a lot of our team members be like, whoa, I'm working for a US company making USD. Like, I'm super happy. Like, I want to keep this job as long as I can. And I know some companies are like, well, like my best AEs, my best closers, my best VPs, all were SDRs at some point. So like that's how we get our future leaders. And if that's the case, then I would say divide your SDR team up into two, like hire locally for people that you see becoming leaders in your company, but still keep a good portion of your team offshore because you're going to have like a longer tenure with SDRs who are offshore. That's my personal opinion. You can hate on me in the comments if you want. And really fast before we move on, I also know like your next thought is You're going to say, like, well, my last offshore SDR gave me PTSD because I hear that a lot. So let me just break down what happens because I think most people don't know. So, first, if you're hiring offshore, I want you to still put them through the same interview process as your other candidates. That's super important, right? Second, you're probably going through an agency. And so you have to make sure that you choose a good agency. So when I was an SDR manager at another company in Ethiopia, we worked for US companies that like you probably bank with them, you probably order your groceries for them, you probably have their app on your phone. They pay like 50 cents an hour. Like it is so low. They treat the team members horribly. Like they don't do a good job. They sometimes don't pay on time. So it really makes a big difference, like what kind of agency you're choosing. Third, you have to make sure you onboard your offshore team members the same as any other SDR in your company. As long as you put them through the same training, you give them the same incentives, they're on the same tech stack, you give them the same PTO, they're working the same like US days and holidays, like they should perform like any other SDR. Fourth, never sign a long-term contract with an offshore team. I've seen so many companies ripped off by this. And you have to remember like the two main reasons why people will hire offshore is because it's cheaper and you can fire a bad apple like same day. Like there shouldn't be like you should never be locked into a contract or like a team member. And the fifth is to make sure that when you're doing offshore, you're looking at more like emerging locations. So, for example, if you're hiring your SDRs out of the Philippines, nothing wrong with that. But people have been hiring from the Philippines for decades. And so it's kind of a small country, actually. So you're probably competing against the same small businesses that you are competing with in the US. So it's better if you can just branch out hire from a place like South Africa, Zimbabwe, Kenya, again, because like while there are some outsourcing companies there, there's not enough to have as much competition. So you're likely to get better candidates, better pricing, and probably have a better experience. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm not being spammy. Like these are just facts, in my opinion. Um,
Quick question, Valerie, just on
yeah.
my end. If you what's your definition of a long-term contract?
I mean, we do month by month contracts. Like so we'll ask for like 3 months if possible. And after that month by month, I think that's what it should be. But I've seen people like you're locked in for like a year with SDRs that you don't like. And I think that's crazy. So yeah, nothing more than 3 months.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, don't sign that. Okay, so other ways to reduce churn. Okay, so again, this is my personal opinion. The SDR leaders or sales leaders I've seen who say, well, my mentor told me to hire slow and fire fast. They always have like the worst teams, like the worst results. So I go against that because I think if you hire slow, you probably hired too slow and now you're frantic and you needed them yesterday and now you don't have time to like train them properly. And also, I've seen like when you believe in that fire fast mentality, I think it makes people walk on eggshells. So for me, as long as someone is professional, has integrity, and you can see that they have the potential, I would keep with them even if they're like a slower start. I have some team members that it took them a lot longer to get in the groove than I would have expected. And now they're like the rock stars. And I'm like, please don't ever leave me. Like, I really need you. Right. So I would say, like, if you can see the potential, like, stick with someone and get rid of this advice because I don't think it works. Other advice to reduce churn, I think the more FaceTime, the better. Like the sales leaders I know who spend a lot of time with their team members talking about professional things as well as personal things, I think always get better results. There is like a really kind of like VP of sales I met yesterday here in Pittsburgh, and he was like, I have become a number and not a name. And that's what made me realize I need a new company. So if you're hiring in Pittsburgh, let me know. I'd love to connect you. But yeah, you definitely want more FaceTime. You want people to feel like they really belong and that you really know them. Third, I think we've mentioned, like, I think Dale, you said it, we've said it like this whole time, like the more opportunities to learn and grow, I think really keeps someone at a company. Fourth, again, be kind. I do know that there's companies who pay a little bit more than us, maybe $100 more, and we don't have SDRs leaving us because our team is so much nicer. The other company is very toxic, like a really bad work environment. So like I don't think you can like just reiterate enough, just to, like be good people. And the last, again, I think is commission. Like people have to be making their financial goals to want to stick with you. So like having a good comp plan in place, again, is totally worth it.
Question for you.
Yeah.
How do you handle someone who is an introvert and have an inferiority complex?
Oh, that's hard. I mean, that's really hard. Like I mean, I think introverts can still be great salespeople. I don't think that's the issue. I think someone who might have that kind of complex might be harder. So maybe just like on a personal level, like leveling with them and like trying to coach them like to the side, I think might be most helpful.
Fair enough.
Yeah, great question, guys. Okay. This is the last part I have. So, in my opinion, the goal is this. Like your system should be so good in your coaching and your like commercial enablement that any SDR can perform at an elite level. So it doesn't matter if they're in the office or remote. It doesn't matter if they're like green or if they've been with you a few years. It doesn't matter if they're in the US or offshore. Like everybody should be performing at a high level if you set it up correctly. So again, if you go to like that client I mentioned at the beginning who's making 1,000 appointments per month, like this is how many dials. Like I just circled it. This is like I just took a screenshot, but like they're calling 303 people, 280, 346. So I would say cold calling still a volume game. That's my opinion. And try increasing volume and see what happens. Second, this SDR manager is so good at having our team members reschedule no-shows and cancels. She's just so good at it. I think she started doing this last year when she did a campaign, and for 3 weeks, our team only called people that they had to reschedule, and they booked like 997 appointments and 358,000 in revenue generated. So again, like if you're not having someone do like call no-shows and reschedule them, I think you're like leaving like money on the table. And last thing is like call dead and old leads. This is something I've seen a lot of our clients do it. She's really good at it as well, but there is so much money to be found in those dead leads that you thought were like dead for like 2 years, right? Like have your SDRs go back through and call them. And I think you're still gonna have some pretty good conversion.
Valerie, two questions. From
Yeah.
one from Jackie. Are these dials from a multi-dialer tool or a single dialer tool?
Oh, great question. Um, I don't actually know which dialer. I think they are using a power dialer. I know the name of it. Now I can't think of it. Um, I cannot remember the name. I can find out. You can message me and I can find out. But I think they are using a power dialer
Okay.
of some sort
And then from Alicia, are those calls per day or a week?
per day.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I know people are against like, don't just smile and dial and you can't just call, but like, I don't know, like our team members are doing it and it's working. So yeah, I would definitely try experimenting with it and do it.
Wow, my team averages 40 a day. Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah. Yeah. I do hear that a lot. Um, By the way, this is lower. Like we have people who were doing like proxy voting experience. That's like a really big thing being outsourced, and they're doing 800 to 1,000 calls a day. So then when they get with this client and they're only calling 300 people a day, they're this is heaven, right? Like this is so easy. So yeah, no, I think increase the volume. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Three more slides left. You guys are being so great. Okay, I think it's really important what I've seen in my own personal sales team is to teach people what matters. So for our industry, rapport really matters, like just building that rapport because one, we're cold calling and offshore, so people are already a little bit skeptical of that. Two, we only hire SDRs in Africa because that's our social impact. Like 70% of who we hire is women. We love it. But if you know anything about America, you know that most people don't know anything about Africa. So we've actually had two people ask us where the continent of Africa is, like on a map. On a map, they didn't know where Africa was. One of our biggest clients did not know Ethiopia was a real country until he met us. So geography teachers everywhere are failing us. But the point is, because our clients don't know anything about Africa and probably already have like a negative idea, we have to do a lot of building rapport. So I have taught my team, I call it like the 7 minute rule, but basically the first 7 minutes of like a 30-minute call, they're building rapport. So I don't care if our call started at 10 and it's 10:05 and the client asked me like a work question. I am saying, love that question, but first I want to know this. And then I'm asking them a personal question. And I've taught all of our sales team members to do that. Um, and then just as another example, I again was at Funnel and I met two people from two different power dialer companies while I was there. And then I set up follow-up calls with them after the event because I thought, wow, it'd be really nice if a client asked me what, dialer I would recommend. I would have a good, email intro for them. So the first guy spent the whole 30 minutes with his PowerPoint, telling me about his company, asking me who I'm considering, telling me why they're better, like 30 minutes of like just hard selling to me. And then the second person was a woman who we spent the whole time talking about how her flight sucked on the way back from Funnel. We talked about our kids. We talked about what it's like to be a woman in sales. I think the last like 6 minutes of the call, I asked her like the three questions I had just to make sure like the dialer would work. She answered them. And then last week when somebody said, like, hey, who's your power dialer recommendation? I give an email intro to her, right? Because I like her, I trust her. I know if something happens, I can call her up and she'll help me. I do not trust that first guy. So it's just like it doesn't matter what industry you're in, like building rapport like really matters, right? And I think you got to teach that to your team. Second thing is like you guys know that like the tips and tricks that like just work really well. So one thing that works for us is we usually teach our SDRs the phrase, and that's actually why. I picked it up at like a Sell Better episode, but it works. Like I don't know the answer. And that's actually why I want you to meet, Dale. Let me schedule an appointment for you. Or like, we don't have the budget for this. Perfect. That's actually why I want to set up that meeting for you because it's like low pressure and you have the time to talk when you don't, like whatever. Like I find that phrase works so well for our SDRs, but whatever it is for you and your industry, just like teach that over and over. Like teach that magic phrase that you know works. Um, and then I think again, auditing and coaching, like the sales teams again that I see have the best results. Their SDR managers do the most amount of auditing calls and coaching them on it. Like time and time and again, like those are always the people who have the best results. Okay, guys. So I want to wrap up. Oh, Dale, what were you gonna say?
Real quick question from Jackie
Yeah.
again. Can you share how to keep motivation going with the high volume of calls?
Um, I mean, I do think like that morning and midday huddle is a great idea to kind of help. Again, like if you're paying for every booking, like $10, $5, whatever, that I think motivates people. And then I think every SDR has their own trick. One of our SDRs, I guess he really likes like dates. And so he just will have like, he has to get 5 appointments a day. So he has 5 dates. And every time he gets an appointment, he eats like one date. And like that, like little sweet treat just like really motivates him. So, I mean, I think it just depends per person. Um, but yeah, I mean, you gotta keep them motivated. But I found our team members, like, if they're getting paid well, like, and again, they're working remote, so they're just like so freaking happy to not be dealing with traffic. Like, they're happy to do like the dials. Like, that's not the hard part for them.
So then it raises the question, like, should you be motivating them or are they already self-motivated?
I think it's a combination of both, right? Like, some people like just won't be motivated well, but like, I think if you have a good comp plan and you're knowing what they're working for and you know them on a personal level and they know that at the end of the week like their worst call is going to get played in front of everyone, like I think like those things kind of also like motivate you to keep doing well. Yeah. We have other SDRs who will also they'll do a really big deal on like who was the best performing SDR of the month. They'll get a different like incentive. If again, like if you see someone doing above and beyond, or maybe you just know they're having a rough day, maybe that's when you send the coffee or like the cookie their way or whatever. So yeah, I think all those little tricks kind of play well together. Yeah. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about this is what I personally do. LinkedIn for us has been huge for getting clients. And I feel like our LinkedIn strategy works really well. So for the past 3.5 years, I have added 100 people almost a week that are our potential ICP. At this point, I don't manually do it anymore. We have an AI tool called Magnify 2 that we use, and it just will say, like, I want to connect with SaaS companies in the Bay Area that have this many employees or more. And like it just is connecting for me. Second thing is, again, for almost 4 years, I've been posting 3 to 5 times a week on LinkedIn, like without fail. And then again, because rapport is so big for our industry, I have seen that graphics don't work, memes don't work. What works is pictures of me, pictures of my kids, pictures of our team, like anything that's showing that like we're real people. Um, Third thing is this is something I learned recently is just the willingness to experiment with new content. So this is a screenshot. Like one of our ex NFL player clients came to town and we did this like fun trivia contest where I said like, hey, like your team member is in Ethiopia. What is the capital city of Ethiopia? And then he had to answer. And then he asked me a football question like, Valerie, how many teams are in the NFL? And I said 50, one for each state. That was wrong. That's not how many football teams there are. But anyways, I put this one's actually on Instagram. I loaded that up, even though I look like a total idiot who knows nothing about football. We got almost 70,000 views and 404 people reshared me thinking that there were 50 teams in the NFL. And at first I was like, this is so embarrassing. But the comments were like, Val, it's so nice to not see you be so serious. Like, oh, hey, I had no idea about this either. And so it just worked out really well. So again, like the lesson is like, don't be afraid to post content that's not your usual content. Like, don't be afraid to experiment and don't be afraid to post things where you don't look your best because like sometimes that's what resonates most, you know? And then I do about 20 to 30 minutes of commenting per day, Monday through Friday on LinkedIn. I'm probably doing about 10 minutes of that myself. And then I have a BDR who works under my profile who's doing the other 20 minutes of comments. So I save people on Sales Navigator on different leads, and he knows kind of like which group just to message kind of periodically. I found this really helpful for a couple of reasons. First, if someone has not replied to my message, leaving a comment is much better than having to send them another message saying, like, just following up, right? Like, it kind of, they're like, who is this Valerie again? Like, when they see my comment, and then that leads them to usually respond. And if you go back to the idea of the two people I met at Funnel with the power dialers, the guy did not add me on LinkedIn. And to be honest, I don't remember his name anymore. The girl did. And probably since Funnel, she has commented or liked one of my posts once a week. And I've done the same for her. And so when it came time to recommending someone, again, she's been on my mind every single week because I've seen her in my feed. So anybody you're engaging with, I would encourage your sales team to also add them on LinkedIn and like comment and post and like them regularly. Fifth thing, you will never see me do a spammy message. I never say, and we have cold colors and customer service reps. Like I never say that. I'll show you on the next slide what I write, but like never do a spammy message. Nobody likes that. And six, I am doing LinkedIn messages, and then we are cold calling people who don't respond to my LinkedIn messages, and that has worked really like effectively for us. So this is what my messaging kind of looks like. Once in a while we change it, but I will say, well, I'll say something like, hey, name, just wanted to connect because I'm also a pavilion member, if that's a campaign, or I just want to connect because I saw what you were doing at blah, blah, blah company. Look forward to having you in my network. And then I put on a side note and I tried to do a personal fact. And then because it was taking so long for me to be sending this, I wrote down like 10 to 15 things my BDR can say that I'm okay with. So, for example, if he sees that they're in Pennsylvania, oh, great, I'm also in PA, smiley face. If he sees that this person's also in Indiana, like I grew up in Fort Wayne, great to meet another Hoosier. If they're in Texas, I would say, like, I was just in Austin for a sales conference and I ate the best tacos of my life, right? Like, I try to add something personal so they don't think I'm salesy or spammy. And then once they follow up on that message, which they usually do, I'll reply like that's so cool or amazing or whatever they say. And then I'll say like if you ever want to hop on a networking call sometime, happy to chat anything sales or taco related. Taco related as in if they live in Texas. That's not like something random I would say, right? Like so it has to fit kind of like happy to chat anything about sales or life in Indiana, right? Whatever it is. And I know that people are always like afraid, like, well, I don't want to, no one wants to hop on a networking call and be sold to. But I don't do that. Like, I don't share a PowerPoint. I actually get to know them. And I have found if I just actually think of it as a networking call, so many great things happen. Sometimes they hire us. Sometimes they realize, oh, like my best friend's hiring SDRs, I'll connect you. Sometimes they're selling a service that I realize one of my clients like, and I'll connect them to my clients. Sometimes I'm like, oh, you'd be a great podcast guest for one of our clients who I know is looking for podcast guests. So I really use it as like a matchmaking kind of meeting where we are networking, but there's usually some really cool things that come out of it. That might not work for everybody. But for me, like it works really well and it doesn't feel spammy and it converts really well. And some of our biggest clients have come from, again, cold outreach on LinkedIn. And then again, like if somebody's not answering those two messages, this is the script, like a loose script of what our SDR is saying. So she'll call and say, like, hey, so and so, like, this is Abby from Cradle. What I catch you in the middle of? And the what did I catch you in the middle of is something I stole from Selling Sarah. I learned it from her. She's amazing. But like, I love this because it's a good way to build rapport. So they'll say, like, I'm in the middle of doing taxes. And then Abby will say, oh, I hate taxes. They're the worst, right? Or they'll say, like, oh, I'm walking my dogs. Oh, what kind of dogs? I have two, right? Like, it just kind of allows you to build rapport really quickly on that cold call. And then she'll say, like, okay, so I'm calling because you actually connected with my boss, like Valerie on LinkedIn. I think you guys have messaged a few times. I'm her scheduling assistant. Just wanted to see if we can get you guys like a networking call finally scheduled. And then usually they're like, who, Valerie, who, right? Like, and you can like hear them typing and they're trying to look me up, right? And then Ken, because I'm posting and I look like a real person, like that's in my favor. And then Abby's like, yeah, like no worries. Like if you don't want to connect with her, but she meets like a lot of women in sales, thought there might be some cool synergy between you. And I know like if your inbox looks like hers, you probably haven't even seen the message. So, like I'm just trying to call and be like, be helpful. And then they will schedule a call. So it's a little bit, I wouldn't say sneaky, but it feels very warm despite being a very cold call because she is, again, saying that she's like a scheduling assistant. She's mentioning my name. She's building rapport. And we have found that this talk track works really well for getting our appointments or our calendar super full. And then, guys, last slide. These are just a few other tricks in terms of scaling responsibly. I would always say hire 2 to 3 reps at a time. I would never just hire one cold caller at a time, just because it's like same amount of effort. If you have an issue with training, like you know whether it's the training or if it's a person, like you can just kind of like pinpoint the problem a little bit better. And then if one person quits, you still have like team members there. You didn't waste all that time. Number two is I would say start small. Yesterday, I was also on a call with a guy who used to have 80 SDRs at his last company. His new company doesn't have any outbound motion. So the sales rep is doing the cold calling, the closing, the onboarding, right? And so he was like, I'd probably need at least another 80 reps. And I was like, oh, like start with 10, like eight, like don't start with a big group, like start with a small group, test it, make sure things are going well, and then you can hire more. And then the last thing is like a lot of our best clients, like when they see an SDR who has some kind of leadership ability or desire, they're still keeping them as an SDR, but they will often either pay them more to help them with another task, pay them for an extra an hour a day. But they are basically, that person will help them interview, help them train, help them support new team members. And that's kind of a good way to get the people who have that management desire. They're still an SDR, but you're paying them a little bit more to also support you. So that's all I have for you guys. I don't know if you guys have any more questions based on that. Um, yeah, Dale, what do you have?
I think we're all good on questions. That was
Love
awesome.
it.
That was awesome, Valerie. Thank you for walking us through everything that how you think about when it comes to hiring, essentially outsourcing, qualifications or backgrounds or interviewing candidates, onboarding, and all the above. So thank you so much, Valerie.
Yeah, thanks guys for being here. You guys asked so many good questions. If anybody has questions or things that pop up, you can always email me. I post on LinkedIn all the time, tips and tricks. So yeah, happy to connect with anybody. That's great. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. This recording will be available on SDR Leaders of USA's YouTube channel. So take a look at that and hope to see you all soon. Later, everyone.